Hello, this is Christine. I'm with a Naturally Balanced Dog, and I just wanted to take some time and just do a little ramble with you. Anyways, what I wanted to talk about is about 16, 17 years ago when I got into raw dog food or fresh feeding for dogs. Um, Probably like many people who happen upon it is because their dog is experiencing something and they're trying to figure out a way to make it better. And I remember when I started, I had a dog that was actually my precursor dog, which was my education dog, my dog that propelled me into doing what I do today, was a dog that had food allergies. And she struggled. And I worked with a vet, actually several vets, on trying to help the condition, the symptoms she was having, the scratching, the itching, the hair loss, the hot spots, the skin sensitivities, this discomforting things. And they prescribed medication and Benadryl and steroids and prescription diets and so forth. And I did that. And I just remember life just being on this cycle. I would give her the prescription diet, and when I got her back onto a regular kibble food back then, I was feeding kibble because I didn't know any better. Her symptoms would reoccur, and we would do a steroid and put her back on a prescription diet, and then it would just keep recurring. This just kept going on and on throughout her 13 years of life with me. And she passed away. And after going through my grieving process, it took me a while, and I said to myself, it's time, I'm ready to get a new dog. But this time, I want to be prepared. And so that started me searching on how to keep dogs healthy. And I happened upon a flyer, and the flyer was a local veterinarian who was doing a seminar about raw feeding, and that changed my world. It changed my point of view. It made sense to me, and then I spent about a year and a half doing some research and studying fresh food. And this was even before I got my new dog. So through that process of educating myself, I was looking for the dog, a dog that was just going to speak to my heart. And so when that day came, I was able to immediately begin a fresh diet for him. And then back then, the options that we have today and the information was not nearly as vast as it is. There's so much knowledge and there's just so much information. And one of the things that I find in talking with my own clients and talking with other people, and just simply by being on different groups on Facebook and in other Yahoo groups and whatnot, is there are a lot of people that learn a specific way of doing things and they think that that is the only way. And I have always been very open-minded. I believe that you cannot propel yourself into knowing what is right for your dog without educating yourself. And that means being open-minded to things that maybe seem foreign to you or are not popular amongst other people. And so I remember when I started feeding my dog raw food, people were like, your dog's gonna die. You're gonna kill your dog feeding them raw. And I I knew in my heart that I was doing the right thing. And so the first thing I think that is important for anybody who is opening themselves up to learning is, one, you want to kind of take the information with a grain of salt. Things that stand out to you that affect your particular dog, then those are the things you want to zero in on and begin your education and learning and Googling and getting in with people that are more knowledgeable based on those specifics. And the reason I say that is because, again, back when I started, there wasn't, you have your BARF diet, you have a traditional BARF diet, you have the BARF diet, you have 80-10-10 rotational diet, you got the prey module diet. So there are different things out there. And if you talk to people, from the prey module, they're, prey, who feed prey, that they think, oh my gosh, you're feeding vegetables to your diet, and that's just all wrong. Dogs don't eat vegetables. Or how can you possibly feed your dog rice, because that has absolutely no nutritional value, which I don't agree with, because all food has nutritional value. And so how your dog digestive system or health is actually going to help your dog uptake the nutrition that it needs. I don't believe the system, whatever mammal it is that's eating, doesn't say, oh, that's a grain of rice, we don't need it. It breaks it down into its molecules of protein and carbohydrates and fats. And that's kind of how I believe that our body is working. So again, I think you've got to do what you feel is the right thing to do. And so I have educated myself and taken many different courses and classes and been a part of seminars. I've taught I've done some seminars myself through Fruitful Yield. At one time, they have about 12 stores in the Chicago area, and they wanted to have a seminar based on food, on health of the dog and things that they had in their store and how that might marry up. So anyways, I did some training. We talked about fresh diets and some of the supplements that they carry and how that affected how they affected their dogs, and some options for people to come into their facility, whether it was for humans and or dog. With that being said, I worked for Fruitful Yield for many years, and that was an extremely humbling experience for me. I remember when I first started, I was like, this is a great opportunity for me to learn about supplements, about the ingredients that go into the supplements, how that applies. And of course, in my brain always is, and how do I convert that for my dog? And so, in talking to a lot of the manufacturers, you learn about different products, things that you might put in with, why they put, like, for example, pepper or ginger in with turmeric, and why they manufactured and how they formulated their vitamins so that it had the best uptake, like taking vitamin K with vitamin D, things of that nature. But the humbling experience was, I thought that everybody who just came in there was just looking for daily supplements. They were just healthy like I was. They were coming in just because they were looking for some vitamin C or maybe a multivitamin. But I learned that so many people rely on supplements for their daily health because they have diseases. Crohn's disease, celiac disease, they have cancer, they have, they're diabetic, there's all kinds of diseases. And I learned, and my education wasn't just through manufacturing and learning about the ingredients, but the people that came in for the supplements what supplements they were using and how that had affected them, and what those supplements did and how it made them feel. So it was a great learning experience. And again, I take that knowledge and I bring that into the dog community as I'm working with my dogs or my clients' dogs and things of that nature. So I think of things like, for example, if you have a UTI, what is it that, you would go into the health food store if you had a urinary tract infection? You would be looking for cranberry, you would be looking for something that helps with the, clean out the urinary tract, which is Domanos, which is a supplement that usually you see those in conjunction as far as their formulation. One helps to change the pH level, and then the other helps to clear out the bacteria. And so, you learn a lot of tricks of the trade, I guess, or a lot of why certain foods are paired up the way that they are. And so, anyways, as I said, this is a rambling session. But anyways, kind of going back to, to the dogs and from my own experience and my first dog that I ever fed raw to, he did great on it. However, I've helped over the years probably hundreds and hundreds of clients get onto a raw diet, and the reality is raw isn't for every dog. And so you have to look at your specific dog. And the other thing that I learned about putting dogs on raw, particularly in some of my own dogs that were rescue dogs that I brought in and put on raw, and I also learned this through the health food store, is that sometimes when you begin putting yourself on and or your dog onto a clean diet or something more healthful, that you can have what they call a health crash, where you think that you're helping yourself, and then all of a sudden, physically and mentally, your body just completely falls apart. And that is a process we call detoxification. And so if your dog has been on a poor quality kibble or been on a kibble for a long period of time, and you've changed them and put them on a raw diet, and all of a sudden you've seen your dog's health completely deteriorate, they had diarrhea, they got sick, they were vomiting, and or they became weak, whatever, their skin, their eyes, they were lethargic, and you thought, oh my gosh, putting on my raw diet, almost killed my dog. And so sometimes doing healthful changes need to be done slowly. In some cases you can just quickly go, but some dogs you have to do a little bit more slowly. And I remember on a couple of my dogs that I brought in, putting them on raw at first, I had some health issues. But with my knowledge, I knew that what they were experiencing. So obviously you take them to the vet, you get them checked out, make sure everything is good. You just kind of got to back up, and then you got to help clean that system out and detoxify. And so there are things that you can use like dandelion root, dandelions, which I do go and harvest in the spring. I usually go to the forest preserve or in a field that I know that there's been no pesticide or yard sprays that have overcome from somebody else's yard that would contaminate them, and dig up the root, and I dry it, and then I have enough. I harvest enough for the year to be able to detoxify my dogs a couple of times a year, which is good, as it is for us. Anyways, so back to you and your dog, and changing them and getting them onto a fresh food diet, and how that's done. Again, consider doing it slowly. If you have a younger dog, generally you can move to a raw diet quicker than an older dog that doesn't have the enzymes and needs to build up the enzymes in order to tolerate a fresh food diet. So you kind of want to just take things one step at a time. I think for the newbies that are beginning, again, it can be very confusing, and just don't get hooked into, I think a lot of people parrot things that they've heard without really doing their own research. They just kind of hear it and then they go, oh, well, that sounds kind of good to me, or they say, this is what happened for me. And it's good to hear about other people's experiences, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's what's going to happen for you or for your dog. And so, if my sister eats watermelon and she reacts, she has an allergy and she has to have an EpiPen for that, but doesn't mean that if I eat watermelon that I'm going to need an EpiPen. So, find people that you can trust. Find people that are known in the industry. Ask questions. I think a lot of times when people post in those groups, there's a lot of bad information, or at least I believe that it's bad information. And again, I think it's what causes inconsistencies and confusion. And so one of the biggest things that I know for me that was really beneficial is I took a course and learned how to do formulations. And so I have a program that I am using, and that really kind of helped me to visually see if what I was doing was right. Because back when I started, and then up until probably the last 5 years or so, you were winging it. You didn't know if it was balanced and complete. You switched your protein, you rotated your diet, and that's what was told for you to do. However, in the back of my head, I always wondered, I'm doing what the experts say, but am I doing it right? I don't know. My dog seems like they're healthy, but I always felt like I just really didn't know. But when I got this program, and at this point, I've probably formulated over maybe, off of this program, probably about 500-600 recipes. And I've really learned that, like, for example, the 80-10-10 diet, which is something that I followed for years, was inaccurate. And what I mean by that is it doesn't take an account for like, for example, bones. 10% of your bone in an 80% meat, 10% bone, 10% organ diet doesn't necessarily meet the nutritional requirements. So, for example, feeding a chicken thigh versus feeding the chicken back or the chicken neck has a different calcium phosphorus component, and therefore 10% doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to meet the requirement based on the composite of that particular bone. And so in formulating, I'm looking at some stuff that I'm up to like maybe 15% bone in it in order to meet my calcium phosphorus requirements. And so the other thing that I noticed is the importance of vegetables, and not only vegetables, but nuts and seeds and herbs. Those are components that I would do the rotation, but what I didn't really do was I did add vegetables because I am a barf feeder, more or less, that adds not only your raw muscle meat, your bones, your organs, but it also does fruits and vegetables. But again, didn't really consider nuts and seeds. And so as I'm formulating, sometimes I'm like low on vitamin E, and then I throw in a handful of almonds, and then all of a sudden, my vitamin E is meeting the requirements that are needed. Or the fact that I like maitake mushrooms better than I like the reishi mushrooms or turkey tail, which has a different nutritional panel. But the maitake mushroom, holy schmoly, I love that mushroom. It just really kind of cleans up my recipes. It's something that I tend to add more frequently. And oregano. I love to add oregano because of its nutritional panel. And again, so these are just kind of things and some tips that you can kind of take, utilize. And again, I'm just rambling on, just giving some information, maybe some experience that I have gone through myself, maybe something that you're going through, maybe something I've said triggers something in you and moves you into a direction that you can begin to help your pet as well. So again, this is Christine from A Naturally Balanced Dog. Thank you so very much for listening today. Have a great day. Bye-bye now.